Hey everyone, MARVS here. I want to welcome you to the first ever episode of The Movie Shelf. What that means is we're going to be taking a movie from the shelf, not always from the shelf, but for the most part from the shelf. We're going to watch it. I'm going to watch it, and then I'm going to come back and talk about it. And then at the end of the show, I'm going to give it a rating. And then we're going to do this with every movie that I possibly can. I hope that you guys throw me some movies that you would like for me to review, and I'm going to put them in an order. And we'll see how far we can get this thing going. But I'm going to start with my favorite film of all time. It was written by the master of horror, Stephen King, and he does in fact rule. It was 1980's The Shining. Okay? Jack Nicholson, Shelley Duvall, Danny Lloyd, Scatman Crothers, Joe Turkel, Philip Stone, Barry Nelson. You get the point. It really is a cast of three, four if you really want to count Scatman Crothers, which his performance is amazing. Why wouldn't it? Wouldn't you? I want to first start out by saying this is based on a novel by Stephen King, which we know. And the first thing I want to talk about is the disconnect between viewers who don't appreciate this film because it does not follow the novel. All right. So for those people, I'm just going to get this out of the way and say, for those people, you have this piece of shit. All right. This features Steven Weber. I don't really remember when it was done. 97, I think it was. Miniseries. It was on TV. It's longer. It follows the book. I guess if that's what you really want, this is for you. I own it just because The Shining is my favorite film of all time, and basically anything connected to the film I adore. This is a 2-disc special edition. You can probably still get it. But look, also it says Stephen King's The Shining. So let's not mix things up. When I look at this, it says Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. You know you're getting two different products. When Stanley Kubrick identifies source material that he falls in love with, you've got to know that in his mind he's not seeing it exactly. He's going to start working it into his own piece, and that's exactly what he did. And Stephen King is on record saying that he loved everything that Stanley Kubrick ever did except for The Shining, and we'll discuss why a little bit later on. I want to start getting into, so please spare me the arguments of book versus film. I'm strictly talking about the film today. It is my favorite movie of all time, so I will win any argument that we have on the subject. All right. No, I'm not saying that you have to have that as your favorite film. I'm saying book versus movie. Just shut up. Just shut up about it because it has no relevance. They're two different entities. Besides, I always wondered this anyway. If you read a book and you know the entire story, and then you go to see a movie, why would you want the same thing? You already know what's going to happen. Stanley Kubrick took this out, and he did what he did. And for those people that saw that, they would have thought, "Wow, that's not at all like the book." But why would you want to go see something that you already know what's going to happen? Anyway, we have Jack Torrance, played by Jack Nicholson. His likeness here in Funko Pop. Like I said, I love anything that's connected to the movie. My Here's Johnny is right, well, right over here. Over here. Sorry. Here's Johnny. Um, he's a teacher, a school teacher. That's out of work, out of options seemingly, and he's desperate for work. And so he finds a job as a caretaker for a hotel that's closing down for the winter. And it's just going to be him and his family there. And Barry Nelson plays the manager of the hotel and tells him in the interview, he says, "Hey, look, some messed up shit happened here. a couple winters back. And he's like, some people don't want the job because, this guy hacked up his family because he got what they call cabin fever. And he says, oh, that's not going to be a problem for me. My wife's going to love that story. I can't imagine that being true, but they go with it. So the family moves up and into the hotel after everybody's gone. And we know that Wendy Torrance is played by Shelley Duvall. Her likeness here in Funko Pop. Shelley Duvall. Gosh, let's talk about her. I personally understand this is not a popular opinion, but I find her extremely sexy in this film. I don't know why. I can't put my finger on it. That's crazy, but it is what it is. A lot of people think that this performance is bad. She actually was nominated for a Razzie for this performance. And I think that it's fantastic. And most people that can be objective would understand that this was actually a pretty decent performance. And so I told you we were going to say why Stephen King didn't really like Kubrick's version. His main complaint, other than it not following the book to the T, to the letter, he didn't like the portrayal of the Wendy Torrance character. He said, that's not who I wrote. She just basically was running around crying like a stupid idiot. And I mean, that's one way to look at it. And a lot of people, I don't know if you know this, but Stanley Kubrick was notorious for doing multiple takes. And when I say multiple takes, I don't mean like 10, I mean like 80. This film took over a year to make. And a lot of people have said that Stanley Kubrick is the reason Shelley Duvall is got mental issues today. I'm gonna tap the brakes on that one. Okay. When you hire actors, you expect them to show up and you expect them to be prepared to do the job. He put everybody else through pretty much the same psychological warfare that he did with her. It was just little different methods. Like, for example, Jack Nicholson, not a fan of cheese sandwiches, which I can't understand for the life of me because that sounds amazing, was forced to eat cheese sandwiches for a week straight just to get him angry enough. Can you imagine that? To get him angry enough to play this part, this guy. A lot of people didn't like the casting of Nicholson because they thought he was already crazy. He already looked crazy and it was obvious what was going to happen. I don't buy any of that. Jack Nicholson's a brilliant performer. He has been great in everything he's ever done. This is no exception. But anyway, Shelley Duvall, let me tell you a little bit about this, because this is why every interview that she's ever spoken about going through hell on the film, she's done lightheartedly. She's been laughing through it, saying, you know what? It was very difficult, but I understand that he did those things to get me to the place that I needed to be to give the performance that I gave. And this is the coolest thing that she said. She said there was one take when they're on the stairs and she's got the bat. 127 takes is actually a Guinness World Record for the amount of takes for that one scene. And she said, you do a scene 20 times and it gets flat, it gets stale. And then you do it 5 more and it regains a new life. And when it regains a new life, that's when you start realizing that you know the scene so well that it's just muscle memory and you can actually obtain, you're not struggling to figure out what you're going to do anymore. You're just doing. And to me, if you have the time and the finances to do that, why would you do anything else? I would make these actors do it so many times that they finally hit the pocket where everything is second nature now. It's not anything that they have to even think about. They just do it. That, to me, is what makes this one of the great. It's one of the greatest films of all time. Definitely one of the greatest horror films of all time. Can't say enough about it. But if you want somebody that's truly exploited Shelley Duvall, it's Dr. Phil. I don't know if you've seen that interview. she's got mental issues now. And a lot of people would say, oh, that's because of what Stanley Kubrick did to her. No, she went on acting for 20 years after The Shining, and then she's been dormant basically the last 20 years. That's not indicative of somebody that has caused you so much harm that you can't continue on with your life anymore. I just don't buy it. I don't buy it. And I love Shelley Duvall, and like I said, I love Stanley Kubrick. He's my favorite director. And I'm not trying to just defend him because of that. I'm just saying the evidence doesn't match. All right, she definitely has mental problems now. And Dr. Phil brought her on the show to show people that she's crazy. And then at the end, he's like, "Oh, can I get you to a doctor so you can take care of this?" If he really cared, he would have just gotten her to a doctor. He didn't need to put that on television. Quite frankly, it's hard to watch. I don't want to link it on here because I don't want to help Dr. Phil get views. But if you feel so inclined, it's about a 40-minute show. It's hard to watch. It's very hard to watch. And she never says anything unkind about her experience on The Shining or Stanley Kubrick. So there's that. Let's put that to rest. And fuck Dr. Phil, by the way. So the young kid, played by Danny Lloyd, here's his likeness in Funko Pop form. Brilliant job. He did that and maybe one other thing after that. He didn't realize that he was in a horror film. They thought they treated him just like he was just playing a game every day. And basically, I can't imagine having a little kid sit through this many takes. But he did. And look, if you want me to be, just to back up that last point about mentality, everybody went through it. Jack Nicholson did 127 takes also. I will say this, coming into London to film this movie, right before she got on the plane, her longtime boyfriend, I don't know long time, but her serious boyfriend, Paul Simon, actually broke up with her right before she left for filming this. And so she entered this film in a state, a state of, sadness, which may have ultimately led to her, not handling some of the things so well because she was already internally struggling with that breakup. It's terrible. But, again, that happens. It's not Stanley Kubrick's fault necessarily. And again, not trying to be insensitive, but when you're going to do a job and you've been hired for a job, especially a high profile one like this with Jack Nicholson, who was very much up and coming at that point, you're expected to perform. And I guess he did what he needed to do to get those performances. All I mostly ever hear is people saying he was really cruel and really mean and, just ridiculous to her. But all I ever hear her saying is that she understood why. She maybe didn't understand at the time, and it maybe took its toll on her mentally at the time, but she understood what was happening and why it was happening. And she, again, is always lighthearted when talking about it. So I don't know. You tell me, am I an asshole? I mean, I am an asshole, but is that why? Do you think Stanley Kubrick drove Shelley Duvall insane? Or do you think he was just doing what he needed to do to get the best performance out of his actors and actresses? I don't know. It's a great film. Love it. Gosh, The Hotel is based on, this is Stephen King's real life story based on experiences that he had at the Stanley Hotel in Colorado. And he didn't have these same experiences, but he definitely got the influence based on this haunted hotel in Colorado. Timberline Lodge on Mount Hood in Oregon is where the exterior shots of the hotel are from, and they actually built that set over in London as well. The maze is not in Oregon, so don't go up on Mount Hood thinking you're going to be able to go through a hedge maze. It's not there. Long gone. Anyhow, we all know how the story ends up. This character, he ends up in the snow, frozen to death. Sorry to spoiler alert for those of you that haven't seen it. And recently was brought to my attention that there's a theory out there called the Wendy theory, which demonstrates to you through visuals that Wendy was actually the one who lost her cheese is the one that slid off the cracker and not Jack's. And I'm going to post that link in the description, because I think that I definitely want people to check out, because to me, when I watch the Wendy theory, I put that together, it just adds a whole nother cool dimension to the story. And I want to thank Jessica Hotman for turning me on to that. Thanks, Jessica. Fantastic. It kind of changed my perspective on my favorite film of all time. All right, let's get to rating this film. I'm going to try and keep these around 10 minutes. I think I'm over by now. But this film, I'm going to be extremely hard when I'm rating these films. Like, for example, on my personal list, I have this as 100. I don't think that I want to start this series without the possibility of there being another movie that could overtake this, because I haven't seen all the movies of all time. You guys might tell me to watch something and I'll watch it and be like, oh my god, that's it, that's the new champion. So I'm going to start off by giving The Shining a 95 overall. It really is perfect to me. I can't think of anything I don't like about it, other than the people not liking it because it doesn't match the book. But the kid, look at that look of terror on his face. Amazing. The first epic horror film. I don't know if it was the first, but it certainly is epic. It certainly stands up today. Just a phenomenal movie. If you've never seen it, what the hell is wrong with you? All right, so 95. You guys tell me what you want me to watch. I'll watch it. I'll do a video on it, and then I'll put it up and see where it lands in the annals of film history from the movie shelf. See you next time.